Okay, so we just started with the first one. S is sulfur. We found it on the periodic table. It's to the right of that stair step. Okay, this is the stair step. It's to the right of it, right here. That's a non-metal. And oxygen was just above it. It's to the right of the stair step. It's a non-metal. Two non-metals make it covalent. And if you need to write that like at the top, I always had to do that when I was trying to do these. I would write that ionic is going to be a metal and a non-metal. And I wrote that covalent is going to be a non-metal and a non-metal. That always helped me. Okay. Now, when it comes to naming them, the compound names, ionic ones we did last week. Those ones we just put an IDE on the end. So of the second one, the first element name stayed the same. The second one turned into an IDE. And if you notice, all of these along here are simple ones. None of them have polyatomic ions and none of them use transition metals. So these are all going to be the really easy ionic names, okay? For the covalent names, that's what you guys just learned about in your ed puzzle, and it was also in the notes. If you need to find that in your notes, it's page 24 of Concept 3 notes that I handed out, and it talks about it on page 24 on how to name covalent compounds. The steps are let me scoot that over. How to determine the name for a covalent compound. If you're going from the formula to the name. First, name the element with the prefix to indicate how many, with the exception of mono for the first element. If you don't have any prefix on the first element, it's assumed that it was a 1, okay, for mono. Name the second element with the prefix to indicate how many and add an IDE on the end. Okay, so it's very similar to what we were doing with ionic compounds. The difference is the covalent ones, instead of just adding the IDE on the end, so instead of just adding the IDE on the end, you're also using the prefix in the front. And those prefixes I have listed out for you on this chemistry reference sheet where it says prefixes at the bottom. You only use these prefixes for covalent compounds, okay? Okay, so let's do some practice here. So this compound name, we said it's covalent. That means it's the kind that uses prefixes. So there's one sulfur, right? Because the 1 is assumed here. So there's one sulfur. Instead of writing monosulfur for the first one, we said that if the first one was a 1, we don't write the mono for it, okay? So we're just gonna put sulfur here for the first word. Second word then is dealing with oxygen. We're going to put the IDE on the end, so it's gonna be oxide. And then we need to make sure, because this is covalent, we have to use the prefixes. So it's gonna be dioxide because there's 2 oxygens. There's 2 oxygens here. The prefix for 2 is di, so it's gonna be dioxide. Yes, I can. So it's gonna be dioxide.
So if it has 1, it's mono.
Yep.
But if it has 2, it's di.
Yep, and you can look at this thing. Mono is 1, di is 2, tri is 3, tetra is 4, penta is 5, okay? And the only reason that you don't put a prefix on the first one is if it only has one of them, the mono is assumed, okay? So technically, you would have thought this would have been monosulfur dioxide, but because there's only one for the first one, we just put sulfur, the mono.
So that means for number 2, Na.
Well, pause. We have to go back to the periodic table. So Na, is that a metal or a non-metal? Look at your periodic table. Na is all the way over here on your periodic table.
Where is it?
on the very left. So is that a metal or a non-metal?
Metal.
Good, that's gonna be a metal, okay? And sulfur, we already had set up here, it's a non-metal. So a metal and a non-metal, is that going to be ionic or covalent?
Ionic.
Ionic. So for ionic bonds, we don't use the prefixes. We only use prefixes for the covalent bonds. So this one, we're just gonna put whatever the name of the first element is.
So that'd be sodium.
Yep, Na is sodium. And then the second element is S for sulfur, and we just cut off the end and put an IDE. So that's sulfide. So that's sodium sulfide. Okay. So the next one, it's H and Cl. H is hydrogen.
It's a metal.
That's the one that's special. Okay. Hydrogen is one of the special, it's the only special one that's to the left of the stair step. So hydrogen is a non-metal. Okay. That's the only one that's weird like that. Okay. So you have a non-metal for hydrogen, and then chlorine is to the right of the stair step.
It's a non-metal.
So that's also a non-metal.
Covalent.
Good. So non-metal and non-metal is going to be covalent. Okay. So first one, there's one hydrogen, right? There's a silent one there, and there's a silent one there. So one hydrogen would have been monohydrogen, but we don't put the mono on the first one if it's just one. So we just say hydrogen. The second one is one chlorine. So what's going to be that word? You're going to use, what's the prefix for one?
Mono.
Mono. And instead of chlorine, we're going to cut off the end and put an IDE. So it's going to be
Chloride.
monochloride. Good. So notice we use the prefixes for covalent. We didn't use prefixes for ionic. Okay, let's do another one. BaF2. Ba, find that on the periodic table. I think that's at the bottom of column 2. Ba is the bottom of column 2. Good, that's barium. So is that a metal or a non-metal?
Yeah, it's a metal.
It's a metal, good, because it's to the left of that stair step. Okay, so Ba is a metal. F is fluorine. That's in column 17. That's over here. Is fluorine a metal or a non-metal?
Non-metal.
Okay, so we have a metal and a non-metal.
It's ionic.
Good, that makes it ionic.
Barium.
So ionic, yeah, we just write the name of the first one, which is barium. And then for the second one, we just cut off the end and put an IDE.
So fluoride.
Good, fluoride. I just spelled fluoride wrong. Of course, I don't have an eraser. There we go. Fluoride. Okay. Let's do another one. Hey, people with your heads down, can you please get doing this? Yeah, keep up with us because we're doing this together. Okay. Next one. AlBr3. Al, is that a metal or a non-metal?
I want to say it's a metal.
I want to say you're right. How do you know?
Pretty sure it's aluminum.
Yeah, it is aluminum, and aluminum is a metal. Where is aluminum? Oh, it's right here.
Yeah, I couldn't find out.
Yeah, it's right here. It's just to the left of that stair step. Okay? So aluminum is right here. It's just to the left of that stair step, so it's a metal. And then Br is bromine.
It's 17.
Good, that's column 17, so that's a non-metal. So metal and non-metal makes that what kind of bond?
Ionic.
Good. Okay, so ionic, we just go ahead and name the first element, which was what?
Aluminum.
Aluminum. And then the second element was bromine, but we're gonna cut off the end and put an IDE. So it's gonna be bromide. Good. Okay, next one. N is where on the periodic table? It's column, I don't know, 15?
Yeah.
It's at the very top of column 15. That's right here. So it's a non-metal. And oxygen's a non-metal. So non-metal and non-metal is going to be covalent. Good. Okay, so covalent, that's the kind that uses the prefixes. So we have 2 nitrogen.
So it'd be
Dinitrogen, yep. Good. Dinitrogen, and then we have 4 oxygen. What's the prefix for 4?
Tetra.
Good, it's tetra. So dinitrogen.
Tetraox.
Say it again.
Tetraoxide, right?
Yeah, tetraoxide. Good. Yep. You know you can scooch closer too. Just saying. Just scooch closer for this. You'll be fine. Okay. So we know the people that are answering the questions are getting it. Are other people getting this? Do you have questions so far? Okay. Let's do one more together, and then I'll give you guys time to practice on those last 3. Okay, so the biggest thing is you have to be able to name if it's ionic or covalent. So Ca is calcium. Is that a metal or a non-metal?
I can't find it.
I got you, boo.
I knew it was calcium, I just can't find it.
It's right here. So is that a metal or non-metal?
Metal.
Good, that's a metal. Okay,
Chlorine is a non-metal.
good. So a metal and a non-metal is gonna be
Ionic.
ionic. So that means we don't use any prefixes for that.
So it'd be calcium,
Good, so you're just gonna write calcium and then,
right? Calcium
What?
chloride.
good, calcium chloride. Because chlorine, and you just cut off the end and put an IDE. If only I could spell chloride. There we go. Forgot the L in chlorine. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm gonna let you guys try the last 3 on your own in a second, and then I'll put up the answers and have you check them. The biggest thing is today, you have to be able to name if it's ionic or covalent. That's what your quiz is over. Okay, if you don't get it as ionic or covalent, you're gonna name it the wrong thing. Okay, so at a minimum, you should be able to do whether it's ionic or covalent. And then I want you guys to try to name these. If you use the wrong naming system, it's a really quick fix because we just erase the prefix or put a prefix in. Okay, so go ahead and do those last 3, and then I'll put up the answers in a sec for you to check them with.